It is 1892. John D. Rockefeller is 53 years old. His weekly income is $1 million more than most Americans will earn in a lifetime. He controls 9 out of every 10 barrels of oil refined in America, and he cannot eat, cannot sleep, cannot walk down a street without bodyguards surrounding him. His hair, every strand of it, has fallen from his head, his eyebrows, his entire body. His skin has turned the color of old parchment stretched tight over bone. His income at the time was $1 million a week, but $2 a week would probably have paid for all the food he could eat. His skin had lost its color. It looked like old parchment drawn tight across his bones. Doctors gave him less than 12 months to live. Newspapers had already written his obituary, kept ready in their files for the moment it would be needed. The richest man in the world was dying, and the fortune that built him was killing him. By the end of this episode, you will understand exactly what happened, why it happened, and the decision Rockefeller made that not only saved his life, but added 44 more extraordinary years to it. This is the Rockefeller Code. To understand what broke Rockefeller, you need to understand what his life had become by the early 1890s. Standard Oil was at the peak of its power. The antitrust battles were intensifying. The press was increasingly hostile. And Rockefeller, who had always carried the full weight of the operation in his mind, was carrying more than any human nervous system was designed to hold. During 1891 and 1892, all the evidence suggests that Rockefeller had a partial nervous breakdown from overwork. He lost all of his hair, including his eyebrows, and suffered from ill health in the early 1890s. He developed a sickness called alopecia, where the hair of his head dropped off his eyelashes and eyebrows disappeared, and he was shrunken like a mummy. His weekly income was $1 million, but he digested only milk and crackers. He was so hated in Pennsylvania that he had to have bodyguards day and night. He could not sleep, stopped smiling long since, and enjoyed nothing in life. Think about what this means. The most successful businessman in human history, at the absolute peak of his power and wealth, had been reduced to a hollow shell. Milk and crackers. No sleep, no joy, no hair. Bodyguards around the clock. Newspapers writing his obituary while he was still breathing. The ceaseless work. The endless legal battles. The streams of public abuse. The hatred from competitors he had crushed. The weight of managing an empire that touched every corner of American industry. It had all extracted its toll simultaneously, and the bill had come due at those sleepless nights set him thinking. And what he thought about lying awake in the dark, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to recognize the hollow face staring back at him from the mirror, was the fundamental question of what any of it was actually for. He had achieved everything he set out to achieve. Every goal he had written in that leather ledger as a 16-year-old boy, and then goals beyond anything he had ever imagined, and he was miserable, physically destroyed, psychologically exhausted, surrounded by hatred and protected by guards. He made a decision that his biographers would later call one of the most significant turning points of his life. He stepped back. Gradually but deliberately, he began withdrawing from the daily operational management of Standard Oil. He hired people, brilliant people, to carry what he had been carrying alone. He delegated. He rested. He walked. He slept. His hair never grew back, but his other health complaints subsided as he lightened his workload. He wore wigs, 3 of them custom-made with different hair lengths, so it would appear he needed a haircut at different stages. He adapted. He adjusted. And he lived. At 53, the doctors predicted he had less than a year. He would live to 97. 44 more years. More than an entire additional lifetime added to his story by one fundamental decision to stop trying to do everything himself. The rebuilding of Rockefeller's health was as systematic and deliberate as everything else he had ever done. He applied the same precision to his recovery that he had applied to his refineries. He found what worked. He eliminated what did not. He built a system. Rockefeller was equally fanatical about his health, following a strict diet aimed at prolonging his lifespan. He ate an orange peel before breakfast and believed that celery helped calm his nerves. He was a disciple of the slow-eating movement, chewing everything, even liquids, 10 times before swallowing. He walked every day, not fast, not far at first, but consistently. He played golf, a game he discovered in his 50s, and pursued with the same methodical dedication he had applied to every other endeavor in his life. He finally gave up golf at 94. He slept. He rested. He laughed, something that had been entirely absent from his life during the Standard Oil years. He gave away dimes to children on the street. He listened to music in the evenings. He read. He played number games after meals. The man who had been unable to digest milk and crackers at 53 was eating small, careful meals and playing golf at 94. The man whose doctors gave him less than a year lived 44 more. The transformation was not miraculous. It was systematic. It was the Rockefeller approach applied to the most important asset he owned, his own body and mind. So what is the actual principle behind Rockefeller's health collapse and recovery? Because it is not simply a story about stress. Every ambitious person experiences stress. The principle is deeper than that. What broke Rockefeller was a specific failure, one that affects almost every high achiever at some point. He had built extraordinary systems for his business. He had no system for himself. He tracked every penny in his business with obsessive precision. He tracked nothing about his own physical state until it had already failed completely. He delegated nothing in his business until forced to by his own physical collapse. He built redundancy into his oil operations, but had no redundancy, no backup in his own health. The lesson is brutal and precise. You cannot operate your greatest asset, your mind and body, on a deficit budget indefinitely. The compound interest of stress and overwork extracts exactly the same kind of toll as compound debt. Slowly, then all at once. What saved Rockefeller was applying to himself the same principles he had applied to his business. Rest as a system, not a reward. Health as an investment, not an afterthought. Delegation as a strategic decision, not a sign of weakness. Recovery as a process, not an event. Rockefeller's goal was to live to 100 years old, and he nearly did so, passing in 1937 at the age of 97, a remarkable feat considering the average lifespan at the time was only 59 years old. He lived 38 years longer than the average American of his era, not by luck, by system. The pattern Rockefeller experienced is now so well documented in modern medicine that it has a name: chronic stress-induced immune dysfunction. The symptoms he experienced, hair loss, digestive failure, sleep disruption, emotional flatness, are now understood as the predictable endpoint of sustained cortisol overload with no recovery mechanism. Every serious wealth builder eventually faces a version of this choice: push until something breaks, or build recovery into the system before it breaks. The ones who build recovery in deliberately, systematically, non-negotiably, are the ones who compound their wealth for decades. The ones who push until something breaks often never fully recover the momentum they had before the collapse. Rockefeller had his collapse at 53 and still lived to 97. He was one of the lucky ones. Many never get that second chapter. Build your recovery system now, not when the doctors hand you your obituary. At 53, he was dying. At 97, he was still giving away dimes to children on the street, still playing golf, still compounding his fortune, still building his legacy. 44 additional years produced by one decision to treat himself with the same systematic care he had always given his business. The fortune survived. The empire survived. The legacy survived. Because he survived. Everything else is secondary. Your greatest asset is not your business. It is not your investments. It is not your network. It is you. Build a system to protect it. That is the code. This is the Rockefeller Code.